What's going on, fam? We're back. See, here's the thing. We've talked about mental health a lot on this show because all of us feel it's very important. And one of the things that we talk about is the effect that it has on our kids coming up. And especially since COVID, we know that's had a tremendous effect. But today, we've got our resident mental health expert back again, Dr. Ashley Smith. She's out of Texas. So Dr. Smith is going to talk to us today about who's paying attention to the mental health of Black student athletes. Ashley has done a dissertation recently about this particular subject. So we're going to talk about it in detail today. We've got some questions for Dr. Smith, and we're going to kick it off. First, Dr. Smith, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And real quick question, what made you want to tackle this particular subject in your dissertation?
Well, they urge us to do something that we feel comfortable with, something that we're going to want to do, that we're passionate about. Because, it takes a long time for a dissertation, for a PhD, and I did mine for about 5 years. But I was an athlete growing up. I played softball, basketball, soccer. I played soccer in college. And I just love sports. I love football. I love basketball. I play flag football. So, I think in 2016, when everything happened with kneeling and Black Lives Matter, and I think they could have just started talking about NIL then, and a lot of the a lot of the athletes in college were talking about their mental health and what was going on, and just athletes in general were talking a lot about mental health. I remember Kevin Love. I feel like he was one of the first ones to talk about his mental health. I feel like DeMar Rosen. I'm pretty sure LeBron came out, but I feel like Kevin Love was one of the first. And that was really impactful. And then there was a soccer player at Stanford. She committed suicide and she won a championship the year before. She was a goalie. And it was a big deal. And it was just, so much surrounding athletes and mental health. And I said, I really want to tackle this. I want to dig in. So that was pretty much why I went into it, because I knew it was something I was going to be interested in, like something that I wouldn't become something I wouldn't be bored with. So,
Okay, so then you specifically targeted African American student athletes. What was the reasoning behind that?
well, the America's big business with sports, and sports, the two biggest sports in America are football and basketball. And I think the percentage is like, when it comes to college, I think it's 44 or 45%, is majority Black, males, of course, but just in general, black individuals, black individuals in sports are big. And myself, I'm African American, and I had to think about it like, well, Ashley, did you struggle with mental health in college? And I was like, yeah, I did. It was very hard to tackle sports and class and mental health and all these different things. And I think it's a lot of pressure, or at least I thought it was a lot of pressure for myself. And I was just only thinking of these athletes at these big D1 schools, these Power Five or Power Four now, these big schools, and the pressure, and mentally, where were they? So I was like, I really want to tackle this. And when you're doing your dissertation, you want to do something that hasn't been studied, and actually that hasn't been studied a lot. It has been studied, but it hasn't been studied a lot as far as African Americans and mental health and Black athletes.
Oh, okay. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and continue to jump into some questions. B, you got some questions for Dr. Smith?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to kind of start off with a bang of questions. I know we kind of prepped about these, but I don't know if it's a mental
Okay.
health thing or a conditioning thing, actually, but I think we all see it once it comes to the even during college phases and even out and do the media. We see everything, every time, everywhere. Why is it that we see a lot of our Black star male athletes? It seems like they trend away from dealing with counterparts of their same color. Do you think there's a mental
Mhm.
health matter behind that, or is there some sort of conditioning towards that, or is it just what you're supposed to do? What do you think about that?
Well, in my dissertation, I don't really think we hit on that, but I can give an educated guess. I
Okay.
think it's a couple of things. One of the things I think a lot of if they're D1 and they're going to the Power Five or Power Four conferences. If you think about it, a lot of, you know, Black females are not there. It's mainly, if it's white females or other races, it may not just be white, but it's
Yeah,
other
true.
races. And I know some of them may, Black women may, play basketball or, run track or something like that. But I think it's what's, the population that's around them. So I think that that's one thing.
Mm.
Something that I have heard some Black males say, I don't agree with it, but this is something that I've heard. One of the things that I hear them say is that, other races, mainly white women, are easier to deal with. They're a little or more, I don't know, submissive.
Well,
That's just what I've heard. They're more submissive. They're easier to deal with. They're not loud. They're not ghetto. They're not disrespecting the Black male. That's one of the things that I've heard, like a lot of them say that they allow them to be a man.
oof.
And I also have heard, and this is just from both men and women,
Mm-hmm.
that, being with a white woman or someone of another race, it can give you, I'm better off. Like I've made it. I've kind of made it. And it can give you more opportunities like networking with, wealthy fathers or well-off fathers. And it just looks better to have someone, that's white or of another color on your arm, especially if you are trying to go pro or if you are going pro with those things. So those are, some of the things I've heard. I personally do believe in love, just love all around. You can, love and be with
Uh-oh.
who you want to. I do
Don't
believe that.
don't
I,
poo-poo
I, I do
love.
believe.
Wait a
I
minute.
mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Love
all
is
for I'm
love.
all
Love.
for
Wait a minute.
Love is love. You can,
Oh,
well, listen to me, gentlemen. Love is love. And I believe you can be with who you want to. I just don't disrespect Black women in the
Yeah.
process. If you
well,
want to be with another race, again, love is love, but don't say it because, oh, well, Black women are this or Black women are that, because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like just being a Black woman, it feels like you're damned if you don't, you're damned if you do. And what I mean by that is, if we're the ratchet ghetto woman, we're too ratchet or we're too ghetto. For myself, I'm too educated. I have a PhD. You have too many degrees. You think you're better than me or these things. So it's like, well, which one, do you want in these
Mm.
things? So sometimes it does feel that way. Just as a Black woman, I'm married to a Black man, but as a Black woman, that's just kind of how it feels.
I kind of
So.
think though that some of the reasoning, more or less, it's a cop out. Because you have high profile Black athletes that have had Black wives,
Mm-hmm.
and once they ascended, the Black wife was tossed to the side, and they got you know snowflakes. You got OJ. I love using that example.
You gotta go with OJ.
I'm just saying. Oh,
Of
yeah,
all the
the
athletes.
right. We
quintessential
just go straight to
example.
OJ.
Yeah,
Go out swinging.
OJ.
Right.
But we can even go back to what's Black heavyweight champ Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson loved him some white women.
Well, that was more of a social statement.
Well, yeah, okay.
That was more of a
Deal with that
that's
one.
more look what I could do type of stuff.
Well, that sounds like that's what they doing now.
Yeah, well,
We and B started us off down this rabbit hole, Dr. Ashley.
No
So
problem.
we just wanted to, get your take on it because, as you said, you
Yeah.
gave us an educated guess. We from the streets.
Yeah, my
So,
mama told me don't bring home no white woman.
Yeah.
See, there we go.
Yeah,
That's
I
how
was
we
I
grew
listened
up.
to my mama.
She can't use the comb. Don't bring
don't
her
bring her
home.
home. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, Carl, when we talked the other day, you had some questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the race thing a little bit here. Not surprisingly. Um,
Sorry, Ashley.
so, and I know you talked about like with students being in, particularly the Power 5 or 4 conferences now, and having access to maybe cultures that you hadn't had access to before, particularly if you're coming from like the inner city or so forth. If you're coming from an environment, let's say it's you're coming from Detroit, Chicago, and you end up going to Iowa State. you're not going to run into a lot of other people that look like you outside of those who may be playing sports. So I would anticipate there would be some type of racism or just culture shock. How does that affect, or how did that affect the subjects that you studied, their mental health?
Yeah, so throughout my study, majority of them experienced some type of racism, especially going to the bigger schools. Going to like HBCUs, I don't think they experienced that. They did struggle with mental health, but they did struggle with identity and racism and things like that. So a lot of them, majority of them did struggle with racism, and it was in like different counterparts. So some of them talking about their cars were vandalized, like their cars were vandalized. I remember, one participant talked about her teammates stealing her clothes, writing things on the wall, talking about her hair. Particularly, a lot of black athletes talked about female athletes. I'm sorry, a lot of black female athletes talked about um, not being able to be assertive, feeling like they can't speak their mind, or they were looked at as the ghetto loud black girl, and feeling like they couldn't have an opinion. So a lot of them talked about that. A lot of talked about their like social class, not being invited to parties. One thing in particular was um, the baseball team. They talked about specifically a baseball team, like sexual allegations and just things like that being swept under the rug. But if they went to a party, it was made of a bigger deal. So they talked a lot about like how they were treated differently than different athletes and those things. So they did experience a lot of racism, a lot of microaggressions. Coaches talking to black athletes harsher than they would, white athletes. So a lot of that dealing with, a lot of racism, a lot of microaggressions, a lot of stereotypes, those types of things.
So what did that, like, how did that manifest in their, state? Did it affect their performance? Did it affect their academic performance? I would assume that they would make some of them homesick. That it's like, I want to get out of here, type of thing, and kind of, I.
So from my dissertation, I there wasn't a correlation between mental health and racism. They struggle with mental health and they struggle with racism. However, I didn't ask that question. Now, if I had to give an opinion about it, an educated opinion, I would think it did affect them. I would think that being away from home, being somewhere, if you're from if you're from Detroit, if you're from Detroit and like you said, you go to Iowa or you go to Kansas, it is going to be a culture shock for you. You're not used to, all of this and these different things. So, affecting their playing time or how they're playing. Again, a lot of them talked about feeling very depressed, very anxious, very isolated from their family. Some of them said they wouldn't call home. One participant said their parents had to come get them because it's like, no, something's going on. So if I had to give a guess, I would think it does affect them, and it did. And, a lot of them talked about, coaches really just looking at them like, hey, you're just here to play sports to win me a championship and not really caring about their mental health. But on the other side, some of them did talk about having coaches and staff who did care about their mental health and helping them.
Hmm.
I think in my study, a lot of those went to black schools, though. Not all, but most of them went to black schools.
So, Ashley, one of the questions that I always think about as an African American male, and some of the stigmas and stereotypes that we have thrown at us is when it comes to being a black student athlete, again, people are assuming certain things. So, in the subjects that you interviewed, did you see or did they say there was a difference in terms of raising, whether they came from a one-parent household versus a two-parent household? Did that seem to matter?
Not in my study, not specifically. They didn't really talk about like coming from a one parent household or a two parent. They did talk about the situations that they came from, the social economic situations, their backgrounds, how it was hard for them, and those things. However, I do think it could affect them. I think it could affect them negatively and positively. So, for instance, if there is a student who came from a one parent household, that and you see your parents struggling, your father or your mother struggling, that can affect your mental health and how you're moving forward. But also it can cause resiliency of like, okay, you know what? I see my mom, I see my dad out here getting it by themselves. You know what? This is going to push me to go harder. This is going to push me. So I think it can kind of be, both. But in my study, we didn't really speak on the household so much. They didn't talk about that, but they did talk about their background more, like, coming from a predominantly black neighborhood, or, poverty and things like that.
Okay. I think too that it's important for us to realize that, we're behind the eight ball. And I
Yep.
think a lot of times, fellas, they think we should consider ourselves lucky that we even going to college so they can treat us any kind of way.
Yeah.
I feel, having all three of us, well, four of us, including you, Ashley, going to college, there's been some semblance of, whether it's covert or whether it's overt racism. Ashley, you're the only one that went to an HBCU. So, when you were in college, I'm pretty sure that, racism was probably next to nothing. But I know, Carl, I can remember, a couple of teachers, professors that I dealt with that, treated me differently as opposed to my white counterparts.
And I think it's more just
Hmm.
for outside of athletics. So if you're an athlete, they're assuming, and you would probably cover this in your study too, doctor. I'm here because I play sports. And that's the reason why I'm seen as being here. I'm not seen as an academic, I'm seen as an athlete. But for people who were not athletes, like you said, Eugene, we're looked at as, well, affirmative action, not DEI. we old, it was affirmative action then, But the same type of thing is like, do you have, are you really supposed to be here? And I think that was a lot of the, like you said, subtle or covert things was like, oh, what's your background and
Yeah.
have you had these classes before? And what, it's like, you think you can handle this type of major? And
Want you to be in remedial
yeah,
classes.
and it's like, yeah, they don't just like give the stuff away. I mean,
Oh no, you can tell. Yeah.
But
And you know what's interesting about that too is that when you are with, your white counterparts and maybe you guys have a study group or something like that, and you say to yourself, I'm just as smart, if not smarter than you. And I came from the Detroit public school system.
and when they
Nothing
realize
wrong with
it too,
DPS.
it's funny. You realize it
Nothing
and they
wrong with
realize
it.
it at the same time, and it's kind of like you looking like smiling, they looking like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to chime in, Carl, because something you said, like a lot of the athletes did talk about that as far as like their academics. They said that their coaches would put them in the easier classes so that they could stay eligible
Mhm.
to play. And when it comes to the professors, like literally one participant said a professor literally verbatim called black people or the athletes a bunch of dogs. They're just
Oh.
a bunch of dogs and they're here to play, sports. I remember that. I remember that vividly, them
Wow.
talking about that. And it was just interesting, like when they, academics, like, oh well, we just want to make sure you're still eligible, and just, like, well, this is my major, and they would encourage them not to, like engineering, they would encourage them not to do those types of majors
That's
because
crazy.
it would be too hard and it'll take too much time.
So in that same realm, then, Ashley, did you find that they athletes felt marginalized when it came to the academic part of being a student athlete or the student part of being an athlete?
Yes, they definitely felt marginalized. They, felt like other, races, white races were giving more opportunities than they were. They when it came to like basically going back to mental health, when it came to like mental health. So an example, they said that, one student, a baseball player, I think, was having addiction issues. They got them the whole enchilada, took them to treatment and everything. And the black students didn't, know anything about like these types of programs and mental health. But when it comes to academics, they definitely felt marginalized. Like, we're not getting the same opportunities that these other players are getting. They just felt like they were really just put into a box of, we're just here to play sports. Like you were saying earlier, Carl, we're just here to play sports and that's
Mm-hmm.
it. And they felt like a lot of times they felt like their staff, the coaches didn't really care about their well-being. Just you're here to play sports.
So let me ask then, because I think historically, as I mentioned at the top of the show, in our community, mental health has not been prioritized. So
Right.
in interviewing your subjects and based upon your own experiences, have you seen an increase in the focus of mental health for student athletes, especially Black student athletes?
It's
So
developing.
Right.
outside of athletics, I think that African Americans have taken mental health more seriously. In my study, they thought of it, it was a stigma. One, they didn't want their coaches to know that
Mm.
they were struggling because they felt their coaches would, cut their playing time, kick them off the team or something like that. So a lot of them just dealt with it, tried to hold it in, quit going to college, these types of things, just suppressed it. I know that mental health is marketed more, in college now, but I still don't know that, like, a lot of them, one of the things in my study was actually like, were there signs about mental health, your mental health counseling on campus. And a lot of them didn't even know it existed. They didn't even know where it was. So I don't even think they talk about it as much. Like,
Mm.
say, hey, this is your counseling, like this is your counseling department. So like that was one of the things. So I'm gonna have to say no. I don't think it's like
Okay.
taken as
Mm.
serious. On TV it is, but like
Yeah.
in like Ohio State maybe, or Michigan, like, yeah, but like the smaller
Well,
schools, I don't
let's
think
say
it's taken as
Michigan.
serious.
So then I
Rest in
have
peace.
to think too, in certain instances, there were probably situations where the student athlete, if they didn't know about it in college, then they didn't know about it in high school, and that I think that speaks
Mm-mm,
to our community and how we address it, because even going back, I mean, a lot of college athletes, they knew years ago that they were going to go to college, whether they were coming up playing Pop Warner and then they progressed into AAU. So these stressors
mm.
that they have, I have to imagine that, Carl B, they've been there for a minute.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Not overnight.
I mean, and we're talking about in the Black community because unfortunately, and we know that the percentage, I mean, everybody should know this, that the percentage of college athletes that actually go pro is like minuscule. But in our
It's
communities,
1%, I think.
you say 1%?
I think
Yeah.
it's one
Okay.
percent.
So 1%. So in our communities, we have all these kids who go to these D1 Power Five conference schools, and automatically they start thinking, okay, well, my son is going pro.
Yep.
He gonna be the next one. And it's like, if you watched your son play, you should be grateful that he got a scholarship to go to college. But
That's how the white man thinks.
but that
Pre-NIL.
right. So I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, pre NIL. Now, if you a star in NIL, I don't even care
You
if
all
you go
right.
pro.
Yeah, you
Yeah, I don't even
good.
care
You
if you go
good.
pro
You're
because you about
fine.
to get a whole bunch of money anyway. But here's the thing: it's like we put so much pressure on our own children
Hmm.
that we don't realize that they're 17, 18, 19 years old, and it's like, oh, you gonna go do this for 3, 4 years, and then you're gonna go on and make millions of dollars,
And
and
take care of the whole
and
family.
take care of the whole family, and everybody's thinking that. But we just said 1% of those of all
Mhm.
races are going to make it to the next level.
And that
So
brings up another question too. Dr. Ashley, can you tell us, did the athletes, to Carl's point, feel like, they were quote unquote the saviors of their family? I gotta go and I gotta do this. I gotta make it to the pros.
I don't know necessarily if they felt like they had to make it to the pros. I think they understood, to your point, Carl, that, a lot of them don't make it. Some of them did. Some of the ones I talked to did, but majority of them didn't. But there is pressure from the family to just make it in general. Like, you're in college, and sometimes the family makes them feel that way. Like, you're the first to go to college, in
mm,
our family, or, they push them so hard that they see the glitz and the glam on TV and things like that. They want them to go pro. So a lot of them did talk about, like, two different things with mental health. The mental health from growing up in this type of, family where your family's pushing you. You're talented. You're talented. Like we look at athletes, just to be honest, we look at them as godlike. Like you're talented. You can play ball, these things. And so like you're the one, but they also talked about like the jealousy from other family members and things like that. But the pressure to make it, the pressure to make it. And you know, it can be different for females and males. So like with the females, it was the pressure to make it, but not necessarily make it pro, but like you gonna have to get a you get a degree. So you can still take you can take help you can still help take care of us. Like if you're gonna be a doctor or if you're gonna be a nurse, like you're the one who made
I got
it
to take
in
care
our
of you.
family.
Cause we took care
So
of
it's
NBA
you.
or a
different.
doctor.
I
Yeah,
Damn.
take
we
care
took
of you.
care of you,
Right,
girl.
right. You
I
should go to
changed your
doctor.
diapers. You gotta. Can I hold something? So I think
Yes, yeah, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's not like, oh, they're millionaires, but like, you know, if you're a nurse, oh, that means you got money. That's the way
Yeah.
they look at
But
it.
what?
Okay.
I'm
What's
an
up,
LP.
cuz?
I'm an LPN. So
What you mean save
So now
us?
I got to be a nurse. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Everybody that go to college is not going to come out making six figures in their first year. So I don't know why people think it's like
Exactly.
People still gonna think it though.
it's like a quick investment. Like, okay, we going to school for free.
But
Now you
that's what
going,
people think.
it's going to pay off real quick. I mean, but I know.
I digress.
That's what,
Yeah,
but that's what they
it's
think. They
just
think that if you have a degree, that oh, if you have a degree, that means you've done. I mean, they're proud of you, of course, but you've done something that we haven't done, and so you're going to be making more money than us. So if I, like you said, if I need to hold something, but is just that different pressure and whatnot, and then for males, like also feeling like a failure, like if I don't make it to the league, how's my family gonna look at me? That's the pressure too of they're gonna look at me like I'm a bum. Not that you just have like not enough that you have a degree, but you didn't make it to the league. You didn't make it. You weren't good enough. You got injured or you just weren't
Mm.
good enough. Like, oh, you were a backup. You should have been doing something better. And so that's pressure too.
meanwhile, these are coming from relatives that don't even have regular jobs or jobs at
well, that's
all.
that's the problem. That's really the problem. It's
Yeah.
like get a job.
No,
you
Ricky
old?
gonna make it.
Right.
We all worry about
We
Ricky.
counting on you, boy. We counting on you. So, Dr. Ashley, let me ask this. So, when you talk to your subjects, because one of the things that I think is important, even before the whole mental health topic came up within our community, is a support system. Because historically, Carl, and I'm sure you and B, y'all can relate to this. That's been our therapy, our mental health. Therapy is our family and our support system. So, Ashley, as you were going through and interviewing your subjects for your dissertation, did you find that any of them had a quote unquote true support system?
Yeah, no, a lot of them, family was big for them. A lot of them, their family was probably their number one support. Even with everything we just talked about, their family was their number one support. Like I said earlier, there were some participants who felt like their coaches were helpful for them. They felt some of them did go to therapy. They went to therapy. Some went outside of campus and some went on campus. So like some of them did utilize, some of them did feel like they could talk to their coaches and things like that. So there was a support system. However, a lot who were struggling with depression, struggling with anxiety, just struggling with all of this, they felt alone and they felt isolated.
Mm.
And a lot of them are still struggling to today of like trauma. If I had to diagnose it, I would say some of them had PTSD just from what they experienced in college, dealing with racism and everything. So it was very intense.
Well,
But
hell, I think all
I
black
would say
people
their
got
family.
PTSD.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
I'm just
Yeah.
A
saying.
little
Well,
sprinkle.
those who are conscious, some people just
I'm fine.
How
That's what you're
big a
referring
factor,
to.
Dr. Ashley, does trust play in this? I mean, because I think that when you're talking about a support system, when you're talking about feeling alone, is that does trust play a factor in how you approach, getting help if you're dealing with a mental health issue?
Okay. That's what you're talking about. It plays a part because, you know, going away from athletics, just African Americans in general, if we go back to my favorite thing is to talk about the Tuskegee experiment. If we even go
Oh,
back to that and what
Hmm.
happened and how they treated them, but it was even
Okay,
before them.
Dr.
It was
Ashley,
even
real
before
real
them.
quick. Let me jump in real quick because
Hmm.
we've had this discussion before, and
Hmm.
especially since COVID, we found that a lot of us, we don't necessarily know what the Tuskegee experiment was. We just holler Tuskegee experiment. So, can you share
Hmm.
with the audience, in a brief couple of sentences, what happened during the Tuskegee experiment?
So, ooh, you put me on the spot. So, if I'm not mistaken, the doctors lied. So it was a group. I can't remember if it was 15 or 12 black males, but the doctors lied to them and were doing some type of work or experiment on them, but they lied to them and they didn't tell them that they had either. I don't know if they gave them syphilis
Syphilis.
or
hmm
if they, yeah, it was syphilis.
Mhm.
They just
I
they
don't know if the
didn't
doctors actually gave.
they didn't give it to him. They just
Mhm.
didn't treat it.
Yeah,
placebo.
they didn't treat it
Yeah.
and they actively lied to them, and they basically they did research on them throughout the years. It was a long study throughout the years to kind of see how syphilis would affect them, because basically they were studying syphilis to see how it
Hmm.
affected your body. And throughout the years, like, they watched them deteriorate and how syphilis just affected you and everything. And they were sued for it, and I think like the families were eventually compensated. But it's just cruel. It's just cruel. Or they don't talk about this a lot, but like in slavery, they did a lot of experiments on women as far as like OBGYN, like
Yes.
those types of things. They
Hmm.
did a lot of different experiments, inhumane experiments. So those types of things. And so if we look at that, we go back to that, like you're talking about trust, Eugene, like those types of things have made African Americans not trust, healthcare. And so then you go to mental health. Mental health is a sector of healthcare.
hmm
And so just going, not even talking about athletics, African Americans in general have not trusted healthcare because it has been embedded in discrimination and racism and, all of these things and cruelty, inhumane things. And so moving forward, we were talking about mental health. Oh, I'm not going to tell someone my business. They're going to treat me wrong. It's going to be racism, but also religion. So if we go back, religion and the church has been the therapy. And a lot of them talked about that in my study. Religion, church, going to your pastor is your therapist. And so like that was the stigma too. That was a big
And
stigma.
and that
Like,
still
I'm
exists,
going to
He
go to
but
ruffled some
that
church.
still exists
feathers.
Oh my
today.
God.
We see that
That
in
still
our church.
exists today.
Yep. Think we can attest to that.
But I mean, I look at it this way. The Bible tells us to seek godly counsel, and in my mind, that means I'm going to go to a professional in whatever field that I have a question in. You
hmm
know, Pastor may be a subject matter expert in religion and the Bible, but not
Mhm.
necessarily a mental health
Yeah, and you're supposed to seek
expert.
wise counsel as well, not just godly. So,
But you know what? When she says this about religion, it kind of brings me to thinking about athletes. If you're coming up as an athlete
hmm
and you've grown up and you get to college, think about it. Who you gonna listen to? Your pastor, your parents, and your coach. They're the ones that's gonna have the most influence over you because
Hmm.
they're gonna tell you, in your mind, they're
they
to your
can't tell
best
you wrong.
interest.
Yeah,
Right.
they can't tell you
Everything they
anything
tell me
wrong.
is going to be for my best
hmm
interest. So if I've got some conflicting information from my pastor, my parents, or my coach,
System error.
then right. There you go. It's a glitch in the system.
It's a system
It's a
error.
glitch in the system. And that's going to mess you up. And
Yep.
that's what messes up people. Okay, when we talk about church, we know that messes people up because if the pastor says one, well, the pastor said so and so and so.
It's got to be true.
So if the coach tell you, well, you get, using B's example, you got to work harder. Well, I don't know how much harder I can work. So eventually it's going to be a break
Yep.
somewhere. And it just may be the coach is telling you that because he got to play this other kid because his daddy's a booster. I mean, it is what it is. So,
True.
Oh, wow. You brought that up because again, one of them talked about that. One of the participants
Mm.
talked about that. Like one of the white quarterback was starting, but his parents were private donors. He was like, "Oh, well, this is why you're starting because I'm better than you." And like those are the type of things
See?
they had to deal with also. So, but back to the religion. So if you have parents who went to church, but also said, hey, we're going to do therapy. They go to school. Therapy isn't an enigma. It isn't something that's so far fetched. But you're right. Like, even today, like, Black people, African Americans, we hold on to these traditions till today. Like, to today still, when it comes to religion, comes to mental health, is still a stigma. It still has a big stigma, and a lot of them were afraid to go. Like, they were really, really afraid to go to therapy because they didn't know what it was or what it looked like, and they rather go through it on their own. I'm just going to get through this on my own. I'm just going to just talk to my parents, talk to my pastor, and these things, or not talk to anybody because they didn't know the help was out there.
So let me ask then, do you think, or let me rephrase that, how can the schools do a better job of helping not just Black student athletes, but student athletes as a whole when it comes to mental health? I mean, because I say that because as a veteran, one of the things that it really baffles me is that the government, VA, they don't promote all of these programs and they had a ton of programs for vets. So I have to imagine that, the school needs to take more responsibility for promoting, these programs that they have. And especially when it comes to athletes, I would think that the coaches would, that would be day one of the things that you're preaching. Look, guys, if you're having issues, these are the places that you can go. So in your interviewing of your subjects, did any of them speak to, that where they felt like the school, had an active interest in their mental health well-being?
I don't think many of them spoke a lot, some of them, but I don't think many of them spoke a lot about thinking the schools cared about their well being, their mental health. I think what you said, promotion, talking about it, um, promoting it, marketing it, like, mental health is real. And once we actually, everybody starts taking it serious, because it's promoted on TV now, but let's just be honest, 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't. So, like, that's a start, but, we have to be honest, and they can't feel shunned. They can't feel like, oh, they're doing something wrong if they admit that they're struggling with depression. Because when we look at athletes, just in general, they're big, they're brawny. We're looking at the outside. So we're looking at a physical appearance, but a lot of times we're looking at them like they can take anything. The mind is inside. The mind is inside. It's something we can't see. And just because you're a big, big athlete doesn't mean that you can't struggle, mentally, that you can't be struggling. So I think what you said is right. Promotion, they have to promote it and allow these kids to admit. But if Ohio State and Michigan start saying, oh, all of our players are struggling with depression or whatever, how does that affect revenue in some weird way? I don't know. It could, but it probably doesn't look good, because let's just be honest. When people think of mental health and they think people are struggling, they think of them as weak. I'm going to say it. They look at it as weak. And instead of looking at it as weak, we have to even change our vocabulary of how we're even speaking about it. Just because you're struggling mentally doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you strong for even talking about it and admitting it. But let's just be honest. Oh, you got it. You can get through it. Just go run, go do something, go listen to some music, go dance. No, it's more than that. It's more than that. So I think
That's
promotion is the number one thing.
Yeah, but people wouldn't care if the team was winning. I wouldn't give a damn if all of y'all
Right.
going to therapy 4 times a
well,
week.
but you know what? I think it might affect, like you said, not necessarily revenue, but recruiting. Because
Yeah,
if
I
I
want
got
to
a
go
whole
there. They
team
all
of depressed
depressed.
people, and I'm a student, like, why am I gonna go here? Everybody gets depressed when they go to this school. So, I mean,
And yeah.
that would be. I think that it would be better though. It would probably be better for recruiting, and I know this is gonna take a long stretch. But if I did promote one or two athletes that I said, these guys, came to me and said they had some issues, and I pointed them in the right direction because, like you said, Ashley, coming out of high school, kids might already have issues,
Yep.
and their parents might already be talking to them about, getting help. And if they want to go
Oh,
to a
they already
school
have issues.
with, like, oh, well, if I go to this school, they're already on that track, so they can continue.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Carl, because I thought about this. If we as parents, can get to our kids before they get to college to introduce them to, therapy and mental health, I think we'd be better off with that because, as we said earlier, a lot of parents, they think that their kid is going to be the next LeBron. So at
Yep.
6 years old, they got them
Right.
focused on being a running back,
Not six.
being in one sport. And that's a lot of pressure to put on a kid. But the parent is, as opposed to looking at the mental health of your child, they're looking more at the physical aspect of it and
Right.
what that can bring to the family. So, I mean, I have to imagine that we've got a couple of kids here in our area that have gone and done big things in college and, to the NFL and stuff. And I know some of their parents. And one parent in particular, he's full on, he's always been truthful with his son. And, I think that that's where it begins because I can only imagine how lonely you could feel as a student athlete. You get to college and now all of a sudden you discover, damn, I got some issues and they've never been addressed.
Right.
Because that's one thing we go through as a people, Dr. Ashley, you mentioned it before, trauma. Things that happen to us as children, if we don't get treated for that, it will manifest itself, as we become adults. So, I think too, Dr. Ashley, with the people that you interviewed, how many of them felt like they really had issues, as opposed to some that's, going back to the stereotype and the stigma, I'm all right, I got this.
I interviewed 22. I would say 21 felt that they had issues.
Ooh.
Yeah, they admitted it. they
95%.
and again, so these were former, so they weren't currently playing.
Mhm.
So, but they weren't that far removed. I would
Mhm.
say like maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe some older, but they recognize now because they have struggled what happened to them in college. So in college it was probably hard to, it was so much going on, right? Sports, academia, trying to live life, probably managing relationships, which they were, that was issues too. So like, but now that it's over, it's like, man, I really struggled. And, some of them were in therapy again for what they struggled with in college, so like a lot of them, I don't know if in a moment they like really processed what they were struggling, but now like they're outside of it. Yeah. 21 out of 22, I would say admitted like, yeah, I struggle mentally.
Okay, so then I mean, because I know mental health, it's like an octopus, has a bunch of tentacles, but I have to imagine, did domestic violence come up in your study of your subjects?
No,
Okay.
I didn't.
Good.
Because
A
I
lot of them
thought,
talked about relationships. Like a
Mhm.
lot of them talked about relationship problems, but no, a lot of them, no. Domestic violence is, and I know it's an issue, especially in college and things like I struggle with that in college too. But like, no. Mm-mm.
Well, let me ask this about, because we kind of talked about female athletes a little bit, but I do want to get into that too because I'm looking
Mhm.
at the way, I guess, the big brouhaha about the WNBA and how they're not compensated like the NBA. And so a lot of women are really, a lot of focus, I should say, is being focused on women's basketball at the collegiate level now. And it had been before. I've always watched women's basketball, but I
Mhm.
like college basketball, period, male or female. But that's a whole nother show.
some about some of them WNBA women.
Yeah, well, see, okay. I wasn't.
That's
Okay.
another episode too.
Okay. No.
Nope,
No.
we're gonna do it now.
Go there. We'll go
All right,
there
we're
because
gonna
since
do
he
it now.
said that, yeah, might as well do it now.
Sex sells.
And that's what I was going to ask. Now, I think that in general, and you can kind of prove me out on this, that female athletes are looked at as less than as their male counterparts. How did that affect their mental health? And did that, were they sexualized more? I mean, was it like, oh, look at you in them shorts type of thing? I mean,
Them volleyball
yeah,
shorts.
them volleyball shorts, them, the I mean, you play soccer, but I'll say, the soccer shorts, the basketball shorts, not necessarily softball because them some big chicks. But, did I say that? I'm sorry. I apologize.
Them
But,
some big chick.
But yes, I mean, like, what were their issues? That may be specific to female athletes.
So yes, they did struggle with that, being looked at as less than, even if they won championships. And let's say the football team or the basketball team, male basketball team didn't, but the female athletes, won championship, the conference or whatnot. They were still looked at as less than, because the males brought in more revenue. So when I say looked at as less than, it's like when they had problems, when they had issues, they were looked at as less than. They weren't given the things that like the basketball team or the football team or the baseball team were given. So they did struggle with that. Also, and women who were part of the LGBTQ community, like they were looked at differently too, by other like teams, by the coaches, by the administration, things like that. And they felt like they weren't given the same as, other teams and such. So like it was a lot that they struggled with, and they did feel sexualized. Like honestly, a lot of them did not like their track uniforms. They did not like their track uniforms at all. They felt like they were very sexualized. And again, a lot of them are struggling with that to date. Like how they were looked at, how like I think one of them talked about like the crude remarks that were made towards them when they would be at track meets and things that were said to them, and they had to just like eat it. They had to just eat it and go and continue to run track. But like they said, like some crude things were said to them, and they said that that was hard.
So I should have asked this earlier. I apologize, Dr. Ashley, but in your subjects, were any of them a part of the LGBTQ plus LMNOP community?
Please say it correctly. Don't do that.
I know what it is.
I knew that was coming.
QYA plus.
I knew that was coming.
What's the I and A for?
Don't ask me. I just know the acronym. Ask Ashley.
Yeah, Dr. Ashley. Yeah.
A is for a sexual.
No, all of it though.
We don't have to go all. Doc, you don't have to do all that.
Oh.
We just said the acronym. We good. We good. We said it properly.
So even, were any of the male subjects a part of that community?
No, not in my study. I don't think not in my study. I don't think any of the males were a part, but women were. But I don't think any of the
that's
males.
what I was thinking
But
too.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know.
No, we don't know. That's what I'm saying. We don't know. They didn't admit it.
Yeah, so
or two.
don't know.
I don't believe like, so you have all these female sports, right? You got soccer, softball, basketball, even flag football. A lot of these women are a part of the community. So you can't tell me that a lot of these men aren't. They just, again, you're playing a masculine sport. It doesn't look, to them and to the media and to everybody else, it doesn't look good. Like I think he did a little too much, but what's that man that played for Missouri who got, it's not, I know Sam Cooke is a singer. He's deceased.
Last name was Sam.
Was it David Sam?
Yeah. So
remember.
the media circle that was around that, like how they treated that. Again, I think he did a little too much, but just the media circle that was around that. So we have not gotten to a place where they're comfortable talking about that for males. And I don't know when we will get to a place, but yeah, no.
But I would have to imagine too, that would be a struggle. You playing on a football team and you looking at all these men's with the muscles and all that. I'm just saying.
But
so I don't know if like Christian Wilkins is a part of the community, but he's done like some questionable things, and right now I don't think he's with the team. But he had done some questionable things in college too. He was just a good athlete, but again, I don't know if he's a part of the community. It could be, but just how that was taken. So I think it can make other people very, very uncomfortable, because I think they said like he kissed a teammate on the forehead or on the cheek or something. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that story, but
I think I remember that.
Yeah, Christian Wilkins. Yeah.
Well,
And
Lil Wayne and Baby
like him
kissed
just
in the
being
mouth.
let go.
So did nobody call him gay?
They did.
Yes, they did.
Yes,
they did.
I thought they did. I think they called that out.
Yeah,
I missed that.
Yeah, they did. But I think
But the thing is, like, it's there. It's there,
yeah.
but we're not comfortable. We're not as comfortable talking about it with males versus women.
So then, we talked about the fact that there's definitely help that's needed. So I have to imagine your subjects, have they been able, or have they talked to other athletes, current athletes, to kind of give some wisdom. Hey, young fella, let me impart some, because I think a lot of times we see the signs, with the star athlete that is quick tempered and stuff like that. He's got some issues.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, have they ever talked about, did any of your
Yeah.
subjects talk
Yeah.
about reaching back to say, I've been through this. Let me tell you how you can handle this differently?
No, I mean, not in my study, but I know like a lot of athletes like are coaches now.
Mhm.
And so like they try to give back and and try to, help and, give their experiences and try to, give that back to the athletic community. But I think that that would be good, if more went back and tried to, especially Black athletes, because something that was missing when I was doing my study was a lot of them felt like there weren't enough like Black individuals on staff. And this is mental health wise, but this was in the coaching staff. Like they said that there was a major disconnect, a lot of disconnect, like the way the coaches would talk to them. For instance, one participant specifically said that a coach said, basically he was late for a practice or whatever, or a meeting. He said, you can go back on the corner and do whatever if you don't do what you need to do. We know what that means. You can go back on
Back
the
on the
corner and
block
stuff
or
like that. Just
whatever. Yeah.
What?
yeah,
Dang.
yeah,
I ain't come from.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what a coach said. But they said it was a major disconnect. So I do think if more, Black, athletes were, or just had more Black staff, it was, lessen that disconnect there too. So, but I think it would be good if they went back and, gave them that knowledge of their experiences.
So, let me ask Dr. Ashley, in your estimation, do you feel that colleges and universities are making it a priority when it comes to the mental health of their student athletes? Or are they just concerned with getting them out on the field, playing, winning these games, and the school is making tons of money?
I think they're trying, but I don't think that there's enough being done. Um, Again, college sports is big and it's money and it's a business. And that's what they're going to look at. So they're the product, and the product mostly are African American athletes. Um, and so they need to make sure on the outside, like they're happy, they love this, they're getting a chance to get out the hood, they're getting money. That's what we want. We want to show the stories of them growing up in the hood with one parent and show them successful. And we want them to make us money at these schools and continue to make us billions. And we'll give them a little cash here. We'll give them a little bit. We'll give them a little bit. But I think they are trying, but I don't think enough is being done.
I
In
mean,
my
from what
honest
I can
opinion.
see, though, I think one of the things that kind of hurts whatever effort they're making is the NIL and the transfer portal. Because if
Mhm.
I'm not happy as a student athlete, guess what? I'm hopping in the transfer portal,
Okay, bye.
go to another school. So in my estimation, we do stuff like that, whatever issues you may or may not have, they're gonna follow you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, you're right. You're
I
definitely
I
right.
think
They're
that,
going to follow you.
yeah, so we have to look at, and I don't know if they even really are serious about trying to regulate NIL and the transfer portal and stuff like that, because kids going wild.
Eventually, but not right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's short term though, because now what you're looking at is, schools are going from year to year. One year you ranked in the top 10 because you got all these athletes. The next year
Yeah,
you ain't even
stacked.
in the top
Then you're
25.
not.
So it goes from year to year. So yeah, you're gonna have to address it at some point. Because my thing has always been, we got to get to these kids earlier. I
Yeah.
mean,
But I think the same thing goes with you saying NIL and transfer portal. Your mental health is, or your mental mind state is, I can make it. If I go
Mhm.
here, I change my environment, I can get more money and give me a better chance to go to the next level.
Yeah,
Or I
if I
can
go
make it
from
here.
Idaho
Or
to
I don't,
OSU.
right, I don't like it here, well, I'm gonna go over here and they might treat me better. But
It's
like
going
you
to be
said, if you've
better.
got the same issues that you're taking from school to
Yeah.
school that
Yes.
you don't address,
Your PTSD coming
Nothing
right along
happened.
And
with you.
what we fail to look at is that they're still kids. Like they're
That
kids,
part.
they're children. They're 18,
That
19,
part.
20,
True.
21, 22, 23. Like we can't, and even at our age, like we still have issues, we still struggle, but we know more about our identity, we know more about ourselves, we know, well, I would think a lot of people, everybody, because some people are still
Yeah, not
immature,
everybody.
Most people.
but you know, like
No,
at
I ain't gonna
18
say
or 19,
Some.
just
most.
think of
Some.
A lot.
A
yeah,
percentage.
yeah, that's true. That's true. But look, but think about yourself at 18 or 19. Like, did you have it all together? Did you make the right, all the right decisions? No. And so, but at the end of the day, what speaks to them is money. Money speaks to them. Money is going
Ching.
to speak to them. And unfortunately, a lot of people think, oh, money is going to make me happy. More money in a new environment is going to make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Your head, your mind hasn't changed though. You didn't get a new
Nope.
brain. You didn't, your issues didn't go away. But, you know, unfortunately, if money made everybody happy, it wouldn't be so many billionaires and millionaires committing suicide and having issues with mental health,
That's right.
because money does not make everyone happy. It can make stressors go away for sure, but in their minds, they're thinking like, "Oh, you gonna give me some money? I'm gonna go. Okay, forget this new. I'm going to California. Cool. Okay,
The hell with
but
playing time. I'm making money.
Mm.
So I
yeah,
just
and
want to
that's what it's
say
become.
that we have, I think, Dr. Ashley touched upon, yet another subject that we can go on and on with. But I want to say we appreciate you for being here. As always, it's, I think, your third time, so we're going to keep calling on you. Um,
I
Family,
appreciate it.
what we're trying to say is that it is an issue with mental health in our Black student athletes. So, in terms of who's paying attention to it, not all the right people. These schools have to do a better job of taking care of our kids, as opposed to just looking at them as dollar signs. We as parents in our community, we got to do a better job of preparing our children from a mental health standpoint. We all have issues, as Dr. Ashley said, but if you get help, you can overcome them. Therapy is a good thing. Taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health. So as always, we want to tell you guys, like the episode, subscribe to the YouTube channel, drop comments in because we're seeing them come in. So we definitely appreciate it. And as always, stay prayerful, stay positive, stay patient, stay peaceful. See you guys next time.